Michael Jackson was born into a world that never allowed him to be ordinary. From the time he was a small boy, he was placed on stages, in studios, and in front of crowds that cheered so loudly he could barely hear his own thoughts. While other children played outside, ran through fields, or rode bicycles with friends, Michael spent his days practicing dance steps, memorizing melodies, and recording songs again and again until they were perfect. Most people admired this disciplined life, thinking it was glamorous. But Michael felt it was lonely. He rarely had time to rest, and even when he smiled for cameras, he often wished he could live a quiet, private life like the kids he watched from his window. As he grew older, the world began to see him as more than just a talented boy. People started calling him a genius, a star, a once-in-a-lifetime performer. Those titles brought him fame, but they also built invisible walls around him. Every time he walked outside, people followed him, cameras flashed, and strangers wanted something from him. Some wanted autographs, others wanted pictures, and some simply wanted to brag that they had been near him. The attention was exciting at first, but it soon became overwhelming. Michael loved his fans deeply, but deep inside, he hoped for moments where he could just be a regular human being, not Michael Jackson the superstar. He tried to make friends, but it was difficult. Many people approached him for the wrong reasons. Some wanted connections, some wanted money, and some wanted fame through him. It hurt him every time he trusted someone who later betrayed that trust. Over time, he became more careful, speaking softly and observing everyone around him before allowing them into his life. People saw his gentle smile and soft voice, but they rarely understood how guarded he truly felt. He often wondered if people could see his heart instead of his global image. Despite these challenges, Michael remained kind. He loved creativity, imagination, and childlike joy. He enjoyed listening to stories, reading, and spending time with animals, who did not judge or demand anything from him. Animals offered him peace, a reminder that not everything in the world required explanation or perfection. He also loved spending time with children, because their honesty and happiness felt pure. They did not care about record sales or awards, they simply wanted to laugh and play. Their innocence reminded him of the childhood he missed. As fame increased, so did the pressure. Michael worked harder and harder, releasing albums that broke records and performing shows that amazed millions. Each success made the world celebrate him more. But inside, he felt a growing gap between his public life and his private self. He often found himself alone after concerts, sitting quietly in hotel rooms, while the sound of cheering crowds faded into memory. The joy of performing was real, but the silence afterward felt heavier each time. Reporters followed every part of his life. Questions about his appearance, lifestyle, and choices appeared everywhere. And he felt misunderstood by many. The more famous he became, the less he felt he belonged to himself. His life became a subject of discussions, jokes, and rumors. People created stories about him, even when they had no truth in them. Reading those stories or hearing them made him feel like the world had created another version of him. A version shaped by imagination, not reality. Michael's real self was quiet, gentle, and thoughtful. He cared deeply about people, often donating time and resources to help those in need. But those acts were rarely highlighted with the same energy that tabloids gave to rumors. When he looked in the mirror, he saw a man trying to stay strong in a world that wanted to define him. He hoped someone somewhere would understand him without judgment, without expectation, and without fear of the fame that followed him like a shadow. In private, Michael often dreamed of love. Not the kind of love that came with fame, but the simple kind. Someone who would sit with him, talk with him, understand him, and accept him entirely. Someone who would not see him as an icon or a trophy. Someone who would see Michael, the person who loved music, laughter, and kindness. But every time he thought he found a genuine connection, the presence of cameras and public attention made it difficult for the relationship to grow naturally. He longed for ordinary moments. Eating a meal without disguise, walking in a park without security, or laughing freely, without someone recording it. These were simple wishes. But for him, They felt almost impossible. His fame had become both a blessing and a cage. He loved performing and creating art, but he also wished for a friendly voice that spoke to him not as a star, but as a man trying to find peace in a busy world. Throughout these years, his family remained important to him. But even with them, he sometimes felt different. He lived a life so unique, so overwhelming, that even loved ones could not fully grasp the pressure he carried. Still, he tried to stay strong. He reminded himself that his music touched lives, that his performances brought joy, and that his creativity inspired millions. These thoughts gave him comfort, but they did not fill the loneliness he felt when the lights turned off. Michael's search for love was not dramatic or loud. It was quiet and sincere. He wanted someone who could walk beside him, someone who understood that behind the glittering gloves, the moonwalk, and the extraordinary talent was a human being who simply wanted affection, trust, and companionship. He knew it would not be easy to find such love. But he hoped that someday, someone would see his heart instead of his fame. He often wondered if true love was possible for someone with a life as unusual as his. But he held on to hope. Hope was something he always carried. No matter how difficult things became, he kept believing that there was a person in the world who could understand him deeply, who would stand with him even when the rest of the world watched with curious eyes. He believed that love was real, and even if he had not yet found it, he trusted that life had a way of bringing hearts together at the right time. Michael Jackson lived in a world filled with excitement and applause, but what he wanted the most was something simple, a connection that was honest, pure, and free from judgment. His heart remained open, waiting for someone who could see beyond the stage lights and into the soul of a man who, despite his worldwide fame, wanted nothing more than to be understood and loved for who he truly was. Michael Jackson met Lisa Marie Presley long before the world ever imagined they would become close. Their first meetings were friendly and respectful, often brief, and always surrounded by other people. At that time, they were simply two famous individuals who admired each other's work from afar. Michael had great respect for Lisa's family legacy, and Lisa admired Michael's extraordinary talent. Even though they came from different worlds, there was a subtle understanding between them. Both had grown up in the public eye. Both had famous fathers. And both had lived lives that were anything but normal. As the years went by, their paths crossed again. But this time, their conversations became deeper. Lisa began to see a side of Michael that the world rarely understood. Behind the bright lights, the global fame, and the larger-than-life image, she saw a man who was gentle, thoughtful, and often lonely. Michael noticed that Lisa spoke to him calmly and honestly. She did not treat him like a superstar. She treated him like a human being. That simple difference created a quiet bond between them, one that began growing slowly, almost without either of them noticing at first. Michael felt comfortable around her, something that happened rarely in his life. He found it easy to open up to her, to speak about stress, pressure, and hopes that he usually kept hidden. Lisa listened without judgment, without trying to impress him, and without expecting anything in return. She understood what it meant to grow up with famous parents, what it felt like to be surrounded by attention you never asked for, and how exhausting it was to learn who truly cared. Michael felt safe sharing his thoughts with her, and that safety felt like a rare gift. Their friendship became stronger during a difficult time in Michael's life, when he faced tremendous emotional stress. In the middle of confusion and noise around him, Lisa was one of the few people who checked on him simply to ask if he was okay. She spoke to him as a friend, offering comfort, kindness, and a sense of calm that he desperately needed. Michael held on to those moments because he knew they were sincere. To him, sincerity was priceless. As they started talking more often, Michael and Lisa found themselves laughing together, sharing memories, and discovering how similar their experiences had been. They learned that fame might look glamorous from the outside, but from the inside, it could feel isolating and complicated. Listening to each other made them feel understood, and that understanding slowly turned into affection. They were not trying to force anything. They were simply letting their friendship guide them. When Michael asked Lisa if she felt the same connection he felt, she did not answer immediately. She thought about it deeply because she knew that being close to him meant entering a world filled with cameras, opinions, and endless public attention. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw someone who genuinely cared, someone who needed trust as much as he needed love. In the end, she told him that she also felt something special growing between them. When they eventually got married, the world reacted with shock. News headlines spread instantly, and television shows discussed the marriage as if it were a grand mystery. People questioned everything: why they married, how they met, and what their true feelings were. Some celebrated the couple, while others made jokes or created stories that had no truth in them. But behind all the noise, behind all the questions and rumors, Michael and Lisa were simply two people who had found comfort in each other. Their early days of marriage were filled with happiness and warmth. Michael enjoyed having someone he could talk to at any time, someone who did not see him as the king of pop, but simply as Michael. Lisa enjoyed his kindness, his humor, and his gentle nature. She admired his passion for music, his love for life, and the dreams he shared with her in private moments. They spent time laughing, talking late into the night, and trying to enjoy simple things that fame had often taken away from them. Michael would often express how grateful he felt to have her in his life. He loved her strength, her honesty, and her willingness to stand by him even when the world grew loud with opinions. Lisa loved Michael's innocence, his imagination, and his deep desire for genuine connection. The love they shared felt real to them, even if outsiders doubted it. But being in the spotlight placed pressure on their marriage from the very beginning. Wherever they went, people followed. Whenever they spoke, their words were analyzed. Their photos appeared on every magazine, and interviews were filled with personal questions that sometimes made them uncomfortable. They tried to ignore the noise, but it was impossible to escape completely. Fame had always been part of their lives, but now it surrounded their relationship in a way neither had fully expected. As more stress entered Michael's life, he leaned on Lisa for emotional support. She tried her best to be there for him, to keep him grounded, and to remind him that he was not alone. But the responsibility became heavy. Lisa felt torn between wanting to help him and wanting to protect her own emotional well-being. She loved him, but she also struggled with the weight of the challenges surrounding him. Their arguments were not dramatic, but they came from two people trying to understand each other while living under immense pressure. Michael wanted closeness, reassurance, and comfort. Lisa wanted clarity, honesty, and stability. Sometimes they found common ground, but other times, they found themselves drifting apart emotionally. Both cared deeply, but their worlds were different, and balancing those differences became harder with time. Despite the difficulties, neither of them wanted to walk away. Their bond still mattered to them. They still remembered the early days, the laughter, the conversations, and the comfort they found in each other's company. But the pressure did not stop. Cameras kept flashing, headlines kept appearing, and misunderstandings grew faster than they could resolve them. Michael hoped love would overcome everything, because in his heart, he believed love was powerful enough to heal any wound. Lisa wanted the same, but she also knew that love needed space, privacy, and understanding, things they rarely had. She tried to express her feelings to Michael, but sometimes, the stress he carried made it hard for him to hear her clearly. Their marriage eventually reached a point where both felt tired, not of each other, but of the situation surrounding them. Loving each other was not the problem. The problem was the world watching them too closely. They wanted peace, but peace was something neither of them could fully find while living under constant attention. When they finally separated, it was emotional for both of them. They did not stop caring. They did not stop respecting each other. They simply realized that the world around them made it too difficult for their relationship to grow naturally. Even after their separation, they remained connected in a quiet and meaningful way. A reminder that their bond had been real, even if it did not last forever. Lisa once said that Michael had a place in her heart that no one else could replace. Michael, too, spoke kindly of her long after their marriage ended. Their relationship was a mix of love, friendship, affection, and challenge. It was a journey that brought them close in ways few people will ever understand, because only they knew the truth of what they shared. Their story was not about perfection. It was about two people who tried to find love in a world that made love extremely complicated. It was about a connection that grew in quiet conversations, gentle moments, and sincere understanding. And even though their marriage did not last forever, the affection between them remained as a reminder of the bond they once cherished. Michael and Lisa entered the next phase of their marriage with hope, but slowly, the weight of the outside world began to settle between them. What started as a beautiful bond built on trust and comfort now faced challenges neither of them fully expected. Michael wanted their relationship to stay strong, and Lisa wanted the same, but life around them moved too fast, too loudly, and too publicly for them to protect it easily. Michael's world was always busy. He was constantly surrounded by assistants, managers, security guards, and people making decisions about his schedule. His days were filled with rehearsals, recordings, meetings, and travel. Even when he wasn't working, someone was always asking him something, showing him something, or planning something for him. That level of activity made it hard for him to enjoy quiet time with Lisa. She understood his responsibilities, but she also wanted moments where he could simply sit beside her and talk, without interruptions or pressure. Lisa tried to be patient. She admired how dedicated Michael was to his work. She respected his passion, his discipline, and the care he put into every performance and project. But she also wished he would slow down sometimes, not just for her, but for his own well-being. She would tell him to rest, to take a break, to breathe freely. But Michael had spent his whole life pushing himself. It was almost impossible for him to stop. His mind was always full of ideas, his heart always full of dreams, and his spirit always reached for perfection. At the same time, the media attention surrounding Michael grew even louder. Reporters wrote stories about him every day. Many of them untrue or exaggerated. They discussed every part of his life, his appearance, his habits, and especially his marriage. It made Lisa feel uncomfortable seeing their private moments turned into public conversations. She hated how strangers acted like they understood her relationship better than she did. She hated how the world judged them without knowing the truth. And she hated how Michael looked sad when he read things that were unfair. Michael tried to shield Lisa from the harsh articles and gossip. He told her not to read them, not to believe them, and not to let them affect her. He encouraged her to stay strong and to ignore the noise, but it was difficult to ignore something that followed them everywhere. Whenever they stepped outside, cameras flashed. Whenever they spoke, reporters twisted their words. It was exhausting for both of them. Their arguments were not loud or harmful, but they came from deep emotions. Lisa sometimes felt that Michael was slipping away from her, not because he didn't care, but because he carried so many burdens. She wanted to be close to him, to understand everything he felt. But Michael had spent his whole life building protective walls around his heart. Letting someone inside completely was hard for him, even when he loved them. Michael, on the other hand, wished Lisa could see how much pressure he faced each day. He wanted her to understand that he wasn't ignoring her. He was simply overwhelmed. He cared deeply for her, but his responsibilities often pulled him in many directions. There were times when he felt guilty for not giving her the peaceful, private life she deserved. He wished he could offer her a normal relationship, but he knew his world would never be normal. Their communication started to suffer. Sometimes Michael would shut down emotionally when he felt tired or stressed. Lisa would then feel left out, wondering why he wouldn't open up. She tried to reach him, but he struggled to express himself, especially when the world felt too heavy. He loved her, but he found it difficult to explain his fears and worries. Lisa wanted clarity. She wanted reassurance that Michael needed her, that she mattered, and that their marriage meant as much to him as it did to her. Michael did care, but in moments of stress, he often withdrew into silence. It was his way of protecting himself. It was a habit he had developed from childhood. He didn't mean to push her away, but that was how it felt to her. Even with these challenges, the love between them did not disappear. they still shared gentle moments where everything felt right. Sometimes they would stay up talking about dreams, future plans, and the simple life they wished they could have together. Sometimes they would laugh about old memories, or listen to music that brought them joy. Those moments reminded them why they had fallen in love in the first place. But the peaceful times never lasted long enough. One of the biggest challenges was Michael's emotional exhaustion. The constant pressure from the media, the endless workload, and the expectations placed on him drained his energy. Lisa wanted to help him, but she sometimes felt powerless. She could not control the world around them. She could not stop the rumors. She could not take away the stress. All she could do was stand by his side, but even that was difficult when he wasn't fully present emotionally. Lisa also had her own feelings to deal with. She wanted a partner who would meet her halfway. Someone who would open up his heart, share his fears, and let her carry some of the weight. She didn't want to be just a supporter. She wanted to be an equal. She loved Michael deeply, but she also needed love in return, expressed clearly and consistently. Michael tried to show his love in his own ways. He would hold her hand quietly. He would write her notes. He would look at her with a softness in his eyes that she knew was real. But sometimes his actions weren't enough to fill the emotional distance that stress created between them. The world expected him to be strong at all times, but Lisa could see that he was hurting. She wished he would let her in completely. Their marriage became a balancing act. They were trying to hold on to love while the world pulled at them from every direction. Some days were full of warmth, while others were filled with silence. They never stopped caring, but the strain made it harder for them to stay connected. There were moments when Lisa considered stepping away because she felt overwhelmed. She struggled with the idea of leaving someone she loved so deeply. She didn't want to hurt Michael. She didn't want to abandon him during a difficult time, but she also knew she could not continue feeling emotionally neglected. She needed stability, and Michael needed peace. Somehow, they both felt that the life they shared wasn't giving either of them what they needed. Michael also sensed the distance growing between them. He felt the love slipping away slowly, even though he did not want it to. He wished he could freeze time, go back to the beginning, and rebuild everything from a place of calm and privacy. But life wasn't that simple. His career, his responsibilities, and his challenges were not things he could easily walk away from. He loved Lisa, but he didn't know how to protect their relationship from the world's expectations. Their final decision to part ways wasn't made out of anger or dislike. It came from sadness and acceptance. They realized that love alone was not enough to survive in an environment filled with stress, attention, and emotional strain. They wanted the best for each other, even if it meant separating. The end of their marriage was filled with respect and quiet sorrow. They both held on to the truth that what they shared had been meaningful, real, and beautiful in its own way. Even after the separation, they kept a gentle connection. They spoke kindly about each other, never attacking or blaming the other for what happened. Lisa often said that Michael always held a special place in her heart. Michael, too, remembered her with warmth and gratitude. Their relationship was deep, complicated, and emotional, shaped by love, but tested by the world around them. Their story was not a failure. It was a reminder that even great love can struggle under heavy pressure. It showed that two people can care deeply yet still find it hard to grow together when life becomes too overwhelming. And in the end, their bond remained a meaningful chapter in both of their lives, one filled with affection, challenges, and unforgettable memories. When Michael Jackson's marriage with Lisa Marie Presley ended, it left behind feelings of sadness, confusion, and reflection. But life continued moving, and so did Michael. Though his heart still carried memories of the past, he also felt a new kind of responsibility growing inside him. The dream of becoming a father. Being a parent had always been one of his deepest wishes. He wanted to raise children in a peaceful, loving environment that he never truly had as a child. He wanted to give them the warmth, freedom, and happiness he often missed. During this chapter of his life, Debbie Rose stepped into the picture in a different and unexpected way. Debbie had worked around Michael for years. She wasn't part of the glamorous world, she didn't chase fame, and she didn't seek public attention. She simply admired Michael as a person and respected him deeply. Over time, they developed a quiet friendship based on trust and honesty. She saw Michael's gentle side, his kindness, and his struggles. She knew him not as the superstar, but as a man who sometimes felt lonely and misunderstood. Debbie often spoke to him kindly, listened to him, and cared about his well-being without expecting anything in return. She wasn't intimidated by his fame, nor was she interested in the spotlight. What made her special in Michael's life was her simplicity, her ability to stay calm and supportive, even when things around him became overwhelming. She never tried to control him, impress him, or place demands on him. She simply wanted him to be happy. Michael felt comfortable around her because she never judged his choices or questioned his lifestyle. She accepted him fully, with all his challenges and insecurities. Their bond was different from his previous relationships. It wasn't built on romantic intensity or public excitement. It was a gentle, stable, and dependable connection that grew quietly. When Michael expressed his wish to become a father, Debbie understood how important it was to him. She knew how much he longed to create a family of his own, one built on love and protection. She had seen how caring and nurturing he was with children. She had watched him interact with young fans, support various causes, and speak passionately about the importance of giving children a safe and loving environment. She believed he would be an incredible father. Their marriage was not like traditional love stories filled with dramatic romance or public declarations. It was more of a mutual understanding, a partnership formed from respect, trust, and shared purpose. Some people did not understand it. The media questioned their motives, assuming it was unusual or strange. But the truth was simple. They cared for each other in their own way, and their bond worked for them. Debbie's calm presence gave Michael a sense of peace. She never tried to change him or demand more than he could offer. She understood that Michael's heart had been through a lot, and she didn't push him to express feelings he wasn't ready to share. Instead, she offered stability, which was something Michael needed during this stressful period of his life. When they married, it wasn't celebrated loudly or dramatically. It was done quietly, away from flashing cameras and public attention. Michael wanted a fresh start and privacy, not another spectacle. Debbie agreed, knowing well that Michael's life was already filled with too much noise. Their union wasn't about appearances. It was about building a foundation for the children they wished to bring into the world. Becoming a father filled Michael with joy. It gave him a new purpose in life. He often spoke about how children were a blessing, how they brought light into darkness, and how he wanted to give them everything he never had. When his first child was born, Michael's heart softened even more. He held the baby gently, as if holding something sacred. Debbie watched him with quiet happiness, knowing she had helped bring something meaningful into his life. Michael's love for his children was deep and unconditional. He woke up early to feed them, played with them on the floor, sang them lullabies, and held them close whenever they cried. He was determined to protect them from the world's harshness. He surrounded them with kindness, music, and encouragement. He wanted them to grow with confidence, love, and security. He often said that his children were the greatest gift life had given him. While Michael was focused on fatherhood, his marriage with Debbie followed a very different rhythm. It wasn't centered on passion or romantic gestures. It was built on appreciation, gratitude, and cooperation. They respected one another's space and allowed each other to live freely without pressure. Debbie understood that Michael's world was unique and challenging. She never felt the need to compete with it or demand more attention than he could give. But with time, their marriage began to shift. Debbie started to feel like she wasn't truly part of Michael's inner life. She knew he loved his children deeply, but she wasn't always sure where she fit into his world emotionally. She didn't blame him. She understood that his heart had been shaped by pain, fame, and responsibility. She appreciated his honesty and never felt rejected. She simply realized that their relationship was not built for a lifelong emotional partnership. Michael, too, felt that their bond was changing. He cared deeply about Debbie's kindness, but he knew that their marriage didn't have the emotional closeness that traditional relationships often need. He wasn't angry or upset. He was grateful for what they shared and the life they had created together. He believed that love came in many forms, and the affection he shared with Debbie had its own beauty and purpose. As they grew apart, they made their decisions calmly, without drama or conflict. Both wanted what was best for their children and for each other. They separated with understanding and respect, knowing that their partnership had served an important and meaningful role in both of their lives. Even after the marriage ended, Michael remained extremely devoted to his children. They became the center of his world. He played with them, taught them, laughed with them, and showered them with love. He wanted them to feel safe and cherished every moment. He worked hard to create a childhood for them that was filled with joy, imagination, and security. Debbie continued to support Michael's role as a father. She knew his love for his children was pure and unwavering. She trusted him with their well-being. She admired how dedicated he was, how gentle he was, and how much he sacrificed to make sure they had a peaceful life. They stayed on friendly terms, always respectful, always mindful of the promise they shared to put their children first. People often misunderstood Michael and Debbie's relationship because it didn't fit the usual picture of marriage. But relationships come in many forms, and theirs was one built on kindness, understanding, and purpose. It was not a traditional love story, but it was a meaningful chapter in Michael's life. Through it, he gained something priceless: his children, his inspiration, and the part of his heart that held the deepest love he ever felt. Their story was gentle, calm, and unique. It showed that sometimes connections are not about romance, but about offering support, compassion, and a sense of belonging. Debbie brought peace into Michael's life at a time when he needed it the most, and Michael, in return, gave Debbie the chance to help bring something beautiful into the world. Their bond may not have lasted as a marriage, but it created a legacy of love through the family they built. As the years passed, Michael Jackson's life continued to be a mixture of public celebration and private loneliness. He remained one of the most famous people on the planet, admired by millions, yet understood by very few. His relationships, his choices, and even his quiet moments were constantly examined by the world. People wondered about his heart, his intentions, and especially his marriages. Questions continued to follow him everywhere he went, including the question that never seemed to fade: did he marry for love, or were his relationships shaped by the complicated world around him? Michael rarely spoke directly about these questions, but those close to him knew that he was someone who valued love deeply. He believed in kindness, in forgiveness, and in forming connections that were honest and pure. Still, living under constant attention made it difficult for him to experience love the way most people did. Every relationship he entered was watched closely. Every person he trusted was judged by strangers. It was hard for anyone to truly relax or feel natural when millions of eyes were always waiting to see what would happen next. Even after his marriages ended, Michael carried memories of them with tenderness. He never tried to erase the past or hide from it. He spoke respectfully about both Lisa Marie Presley and Debbie Rowe, remembering the good moments and the lessons he learned. The people who knew him personally said that Michael never held bitterness. Instead, he carried a quiet sadness for the relationships that had slipped away. Not because they lacked love, but because the world around him made everything more complicated than it needed to be. Despite the challenges he faced, Michael always kept love at the center of his life. If he couldn't find it in the form of romantic relationships, he poured it into other areas: his children, his music, and his dream of making the world a kinder place. His children especially became the core of his heart. They gave him a sense of purpose that he cherished more than any award or achievement. He often said they completed him, and he devoted himself entirely to giving them a peaceful, joyful childhood. Michael's life, however, was not just about being a father. He also tried to show love through the messages in his songs, through charity work, and through simple acts of kindness. He believed that love had the power to heal the world, and he tried to live by that belief every day. Even when he faced criticism or misunderstanding, he responded with gentleness. People close to him often said that Michael's heart was one of the softest they had ever known. But even with all this love, doubts continued to surround his personal relationships. The public had so many theories, stories, and assumptions. Some people believed his marriages were real and full of love. Others believed they were for practical reasons, or to help him feel supported during difficult times, and some believed they were a complicated mix of both. Michael never tried to convince the world of anything. He knew the truth, and that was enough for him. Lisa Marie Presley once spoke about how she believed Michael truly loved her. She said that their connection was real and emotional, even if the world never fully understood it. She admitted that they faced many challenges, but she also said that Michael had a special place in her heart that she never forgot. Her words showed that love did exist between them, even if it wasn't the kind of love that could last forever. Debbie Rowe also said kind things about Michael, calling him a wonderful father and a gentle soul. She never spoke negatively about him, never tried to damage his reputation, and never acted like she regretted the time they shared. Their relationship may not have been built on traditional romance, but it was built on trust and the common goal of raising children with love. These voices make one thing clear. Michael Jackson did experience love, but it was often shaped by circumstances beyond his control. His fame made it difficult for any relationship to grow naturally. The pressure, the attention, the rumors, and the constant questioning created a heavy burden that many relationships could not survive. Michael wanted a quiet, simple love. But the world around him never allowed him to live a quiet, simple life. In his moments of reflection, Michael often wondered what true love meant for someone like him. He believed that love should be gentle, understanding, and unconditional. He believed that real love accepted a person for who they were, not for the image the world created of them. He often hoped for someone who could see beyond the fame, beyond the stage performances, and beyond the rumors. He wanted someone who could see the real Michael, the soft-spoken man who loved art, laughter, and peaceful afternoons. Those who talked to him said he never stopped hoping. Even in his hardest times, he believed love was possible. He believed that hearts could connect in unexpected ways, and that everyone deserved someone who truly understood them. But he also understood that his life was unique. The world saw him as an icon, not as a human being who felt emotions, fears, and dreams just like everyone else. As he grew older, Michael's focus shifted even more toward his children and his desire to leave behind a legacy of goodness. He wanted his children to feel the love he sometimes struggled to receive. He wanted them to grow up with confidence, happiness, and a sense of belonging. He worked hard to create a home filled with warmth, imagination, and joy. Many people who visited him said he was happiest when he was with his children. Their laughter was the one sound that truly filled his heart. His music during this period also reflected his emotions. Some songs spoke about personal struggles. Others spoke about hope, healing, and compassion. And some spoke about longing for peace, for understanding, and for love that didn't depend on fame or success. These songs revealed a man who carried deep emotions in his heart, even when he seemed calm on the outside. After Michael's passing, the world began to look at his life more closely. People realized how misunderstood he had been. They saw that behind the stardom was a gentle soul who struggled with the weight of fame. They learned that his marriages were far more complex and human than the tabloids ever showed. And they discovered that the question of whether he married for love did not have a simple answer. Some relationships were filled with passion and emotional connection. Others were built on support, trust, and shared purpose. All of them were shaped by the unusual life he lived. Love, for Michael, came in different forms: romantic, friendly, parental, and even spiritual. Each form of love mattered to him deeply. In the end, the truth about Michael Jackson's marriages lies somewhere between public perception and private reality. Yes, he did marry for love sometimes, romantic love, sometimes emotional support, and sometimes the love of a dream, like becoming a father. But he also married while living under pressures that most people could never imagine. Those pressures affected every relationship he had. What remains clear is that Michael Jackson was someone who searched for love throughout his life. He hoped for connection, understanding, and companionship. He gave love freely, even when he didn't receive it in return. And he carried a hopeful, tender heart until the end. His story reminds the world that even the greatest stars can feel lonely, that even the most adored people can struggle to find love, and that behind every famous name is a human being trying to live, love, and understand life. Michael Jackson's journey with love was complicated, beautiful, emotional, and deeply human. It showed that love is not always simple. It comes with challenges, sacrifices, and unexpected turns, but it also showed that love in any form can shape a person's life in the most meaningful ways. Michael may not have found a perfect love story, but he experienced love in different shades, learned from it, and carried it in his heart until the end. And in that way, his search for love was not a failure, it was a reflection of the very thing he believed in most: love itself.